Again, this is a review of our different lessons that we put online. So I'm going to switch over now to the screencast so that we can follow those texts and discuss them. So this is the October 2021 lessons in Chaitanya Charitamrita, lessons 3 and 4. And if you remember, what we're doing is we're reading the Chaitanya Charitamrita, because going back to the second canto, while we were reading that second canto, there's a conversation between Lord Krishna or Lord Vishnu and Brahma. And within those texts, that conversation, Lord Vishnu speaks the Chatur Shloki, the 4 essential verses from Srimad Bhagavatam. Then in July, we studied the same conversation between Lord Krishna and Brahma from the Brahma Samhita. And now we're reading Chaitanya Charitamrita, first canto, first Adi Lila, chapter 1, because it also includes these Chatur Shloki verses. And it so happens that today we'll be reading those Chatur Shlokis. We'll study those 4 verses, essential verses. While we were studying them, while I was putting together these lessons, it reminded me of the foundation of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is this. This is Srimad Bhagavatam 112. It's the second verse in the book, which basically states the theme of the entire work. Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated. This Bhagavat Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of the Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within the heart. So this is the reason, this is the purpose of the book. But what caught my attention specifically for today's lessons is this concept. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. This concept, there's an analogy which can clearly help us understand what that means. When we were all young, those who are educated, the first thing we learned in order to speak a language was the alphabet. The English alphabet today is like a foundation for the entire world's commerce and activities, especially here in the Western world, in the United States. Whenever we converse, whatever language, it doesn't matter, but the alphabet, although it was so important and foundational, once it's learned, it kind of disappears. It's not that we think so much about the letters anymore. They're not there. They're not prominent in our consciousness, although we're acting constantly using those alphabetical images. Similarly, these Chatur Shloki verses spoken by Lord Vishnu to Brahma establish the foundation of reality, distinguished from illusion. But in the course of the process of the entire book, those seed-like foundational concepts get a little lost. So I just wanted to bring this to people's attention as we go into these studies, that these are core verses, root verses of reality, distinguishing it from illusion. And that's the purpose of Srimad Bhagavatam, which awakens our natural, constitutional, eternal self in relationship to Krishna. So now I'll switch back over and Samapriya can choose the next readers. Unmute.
Vaishnavi, can you read?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Why don't you read? Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela 149. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayantite. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Purport. This verse of the Bhagavad Gita 10:10 clearly states how Govinda Deva instructs his bona fide devotee. The Lord declares that by enlightenment in theistic knowledge, he awards attachment for him to those who constantly engage in his transcendental loving service. This awakening of divine consciousness enthralls a devotee who thus relishes his eternal transcendental mellow. Such an awakening is awarded only to those convinced by devotional service about the transcendental nature of the personality of Godhead. They know that the supreme truth, the all spiritual and all powerful person, is one without a second and has fully transcendental senses. He is the fountainhead of all emanations. Such pure devotees, always merged in knowledge of Krishna and absorbed in Krishna consciousness, exchange thoughts and realizations as great scientists exchange their views and discuss the results of their research in scientific academies. Such exchanges of thoughts in regard to Krishna give pleasure to the Lord, who therefore favors such devotees with all enlightenment.
Thank you, Vaishnavi. There's one sentence that I'd like to point out here. The awakening of divine consciousness enthralls a devotee who thus relishes his eternal transcendental mellow. Such an awakening is awarded to those convinced by devotional service about the transcendental nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's the reward. If we engage in devotional service, we become awakened to our eternal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That really enthused me a great deal. Next is Manvantara. Can you read that? The next verse?
Chaitanya Adi Leela 150. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Swayam Bhagavan, thought Brahma and made himself realize. The English maxim that God helps those who help themselves is also applicable in the transcendental realm. There are many instances in the revealed scriptures of the personality of God's heads acting as a spiritual master from within. The personality of Godhead was a spiritual master who instructed Brahma, the original living being in the cosmic creation. When Brahma was first created, he could not apply his creative energy to arrange the cosmic situation. At first, there was only sound, vibrating the word tapa, which indicates the acceptance of hardships for spiritual realization. Refraining from sensual enjoyment, one should voluntarily accept all sorts of difficulties for spiritual realization.
Thank you. Is there something that struck you about this purport, Manvantara? The last line, read the last line again real quick.
Refraining from sensual enjoyment, one should voluntarily accept all sorts of difficulties for spiritual realization.
What do you think about that?
We talked about endeavor in the last session, that one must endeavor to learn to love Krishna instead of just like, oh, Swami, give me your blessings, give me your mercy. That you must do your part.
Very good. This is an endeavor. And Prabhupada, if you really, as we're doing here, when we read Prabhupada's books, he is not exactly a bridge preacher. He is telling the truth. He is showing us the truth, and we have to work for it. We have to give up material sense gratification. That's the formula. That's another wonderful thing. Next, we have Karna. Karna, can you read the next slide, please?
Yes. I can't see the top. Wait a second. I'm only on my cell phone. Okay. So please hear attentively what I shall speak to you, for transcendental knowledge about me is not only scientific, but also full of mysteries. By my cause's mercy, be enlightened in truth about my personality, manifestations, qualities, and pastimes. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Transcendental knowledge of Sri Krishna is deeper than the impersonal knowledge of Brahman, for it includes knowledge of not only his form and personality, but also everything else related to him. There is nothing in existence not related to Sri Krishna. In a sense, there is nothing but Sri Krishna. And yet nothing is Sri Krishna save and except his primeval personality. This knowledge constitutes a complete transcendental science. And Vishnu wanted to give Brahmaji full knowledge about that science. The truth of these mysteries was revealed to Brahma by the descending process without the help of the ascending one. The Lord's mercy descends to a devotee like Brahma, and through Brahma to Narada to Vyasa, from Vyasa to Sukadeva, and so on in the bona fide chain of disciplic succession. We cannot discover the mysteries of the Lord by our mundane endeavors. They are only revealed by his grace to the proper devotees. These mysteries are gradually disclosed. Oh, wait, my phone froze. Wait a second. These mysteries only revealed, disclosed to the various grades of devotees in proportion to the gradual development of their service attitude. Jai.
These last little rules that Srila Prabhupada gives in the purport are really wonderful. Do you have something to add to that, Karna?
No, it's beautiful. The mysteries have to be revealed, so just carry on.
Yeah, according to the extent of our devotional service. So Madhurya Leela, could you read the next two slides, please?
CC Adi 153, quoting Srimad Bhagavatam 2.9.33, the first of the Chapter Shloki. Prior to the cosmic creation, only I exist, and no phenomena exist, either gross, subtle, or primordial. After creation, only I exist in everything, and after annihilation, only I remain eternally. Purport. Aham means I. Therefore, the speaker who's saying aham, I, must have his own personality. The Mayavadi philosophers interpret this word aham as referring to the impersonal Brahman. The Mayavadis are very proud of their grammatical knowledge, but any person who has actual knowledge of grammar can understand that aham means I, and that I refers to a personality. Therefore, the personality of Godhead speaking to Brahma uses aham while describing his own transcendental form. Aham has a specific meaning. It is not a vague term that can be whimsically interpreted. Aham, when spoken by Krishna, refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and nothing else. Before the creation and after its dissolution, only the Supreme Personality Godhead and his associates exist. There is no existence of the material elements. This is confirmed in the Vedic literature. Vasudeva va idam arga asin na Brahma na cha shankara. The meaning of this mantra is that before creation there was no existence of Brahma or Shiva, or only Vishnu existed. Vishnu exists in his abode, the Vaikunthas. There are innumerable Vaikuntha planets in the spiritual sky, and on each of them Vishnu resides with his associates and his paraphernalia. It is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita that although the creation is periodically dissolved, there is another abode which is never dissolved. The word creation refers to the material creation because in the spiritual world everything exists eternally, and there is no creation or dissolution. The Lord indicates herein that before the material creation, he existed in fullness, and with all transcendental opulences, including strength, all wealth, all beauty, all knowledge, all fame, and all renunciation. One thinks that if one thinks of a king, he automatically thinks of his secretaries, ministers, military commanders, places, and so on. Since a king has such opulences, one can simply try to imagine the opulences of the Supreme Personality Godhead. When the Lord says, aham, therefore it should be understood that he exists with full potency, including all opulences.
Okay, Madhurya, what do you think this has to do with impersonalism?
Well, because impersonalists don't believe in the personality of Godhead. They think it's just an energy. So Krishna is here saying that he is that person and with full features and opulences and all the potencies.
But what about the Brahman? There are three aspects to the Supreme Lord, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So
yeah, they're all
one
part
might
of
say
him,
that
though.
Brahman is where it all comes from.
No, he is the art. Krishna says, aham, I am the origin. So that means he, not the energy, is the origin.
Right. You can't have the energy without an origin for the energy.
Right.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything to say, Pati?
I wanted to, again, emphasize how these core issues manifest within the Lord's speaking. And he's talking about an abode that existed before this material world and exists after this material world. So bringing back that to our root concept of distinguishing reality from illusion, something that exists eternally is far more valuable and wanted than something that exists temporarily. So again, just like when you speak with the alphabet, all those letters kind of disappear. When we get enwrapped in this material world, we forget that it's temporary, that all the relationships, all the paraphernalia and everything we're dealing with will have an end. But Krishna is going right to the root of this misconception in his very first statement. Just wanted to bring that up.
Thank you. Okay, we can go on with Faye. Can you read the next slide? Actually, the next two.
Purport continued. Just as the sun is a localized planet within the sunshine, expanding unlimitedly from that source, so the absolute truth is the Supreme Person of Godhead with his effulgence of energy, Brahman, expanding unlimitedly. From that Brahman energy, the creation appears, just as a cloud appears in sunshine. From the cloud comes rain, from the rain comes vegetation, and from the vegetation come fruits and flowers, which are the basis of subsistence for many other forms of life. Similarly, the effulgent bodily luster of the Supreme Lord is the cause of the creation of infinite universes. The Brahman effulgence is impersonal, but the cause of that energy is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. From him, in his abode, the Vaikunthas, this Brahmayoti emanates. He is never impersonal. Continued.
Go on.
The words Hasad, Aham indicate that the Lord exists after the dissolution of the cosmic manifestation. When the material world is dissolved, the Lord still exists personally in the Vaikunthas. During the creation, the Lord also exists as he is in the Vaikunthas, and he also exists as the Supersoul within the material universes.
This is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita 5.37. Goloka eva nivasati. Although he is perfectly and eternally present in Goloka Vrindavan and Vaikuntha, he is nevertheless all-pervading.
Akilatma.
Akilatma Bhuta. Thank you. The all-pervading feature of the Lord is called the Supersoul. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said, Aham Krishna Jagata Prabhava. The cosmic manifestation is a display of the energy of the Supreme Lord. The material elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligent, and false ego, display the inferior energy of the Lord, and the living entities are his superior energy. Since the energy of the Lord is non-different from him, in fact, everything that exists is Krishna in his impersonal feature. Sunshine, sunlight, and heat are not different from the sun, and yet simultaneously they are distinct energies of the sun. Similarly, the cosmic manifestation and the living entities are energies of the Lord, and they are considered to be simultaneously one with and different from him. The Lord therefore says, I am everything, because everything is his energy and is therefore non-different from him.
Well, that was really very wonderful. Could you tell us something about that? Any realizations that you had, Faye?
The Achinta Beta Tattva,
Oh, good.
the all-in-one, simultaneously within and without. It's the same yet different. It's fascinating. The Lord is everywhere. He is the fountainhead and the originator of everything.
Right.
Therefore, Aham, I am. He is, I am. The eternal I am, the source of everything. And we, with our petty eyes, might see the material cosmos and think that is everything. But it isn't. It's temporary. It's not permanent. Krishna always is. He is in the Vaikunthas eternally. He's always there, even when the cosmic material manifestation that we understand is dissolved.
Very
He's
good.
never
Thank
leaving
you.
us.
Good. It's beautiful. Now, my husband would like to say a few things about. Oh, is it continued, Patti? Is this now when you speak? Unmute.
Yeah, there's one more.
Oh, there's one more. Okay. So just a second. I'm sorry. Technology. Oh, okay. Well, why don't, okay. Preetam, would you read this and then you'll continue reading again after my husband speaks about something?
Okay, thank you. Purport continued. Yo Vasishyata, excuse me, So Asmi Aham indicates that the Lord is the balance that exists after the dissolution of the creation. The spiritual manifestation never vanishes. It belongs to the internal energy of the Supreme Lord and exists eternally. When the external manifestation is withdrawn, the spiritual activities in Goloka and the rest of the Vaikunthas continue, unrestricted by material time, which has no existence in the spiritual world. Therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita 15.6, it is said, Yat Gadva na nivartante tad dhamma paramam ma. The abode from which no one returns to this material world is the supreme abode of the Lord.
Thank you. Now, my husband had something to say. I can't hear you. You're still muted.
I wasn't going to say anything special. I'm just going to read this next slide.
Okay, before you read it, last time Karna asked a question about how the Lord is actually manifest in the material world. And this whole thing that we've been discussing is in relation to that, and especially this quote that my husband is going to read. It's a direct quote from Srila Prabhupada, a lecture of Prabhupada's.
You all remember every week, or now and then, we include a lecture from Srila Prabhupada when I can find a really good explanation or example of it. And this one was all about how the Lord exists before, during, and after. It's from the 3rd canto, later on in the 25th chapter, which we'll read later. Lord Kapila Dev teaching Sankhya philosophy to his mother Devahuti. Sankhya philosophy is the dissecting and science of understanding the difference between matter and spirit. So in this verse, Krishna is saying, or Lord Vishnu is saying, in the beginning I existed, during the manifestation only I exist, and after the dissolution only I exist, and Prabhupada enumerates here from Srila Prabhupada's lecture. So material world means asat vastu. Asad vastu means not good, or which is not stay, which will not stay. Asat. Sat means which exists, and asat means not existing. So the material world, in the material world, nothing will exist. It exists for some time, temporary. The Mayavadi philosopher says that Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. We Vaishnavas, we do not say Mithya, because God, or the Supreme Brahman, is truth. So there cannot be anything untruth from the truth. That is not possible. Just like if you prepare something from gold, an earring, that earring is also gold. You cannot say that it is something else. So, Yato ve imani bhutani jayante from the Taittiriya Upanishad 3.1. That is the Vedic instruction. Janmadi asyat yataha, Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.1. So supreme absolute truth is that from whom or from which everything has emanated. So if everything has emanated from the absolute truth, it cannot be untruth. How can it be untruth? It may be temporary. Therefore, we Vaishnava philosophers, we do not accept this jagat, or material energy, as the Mayavadi philosopher says, jagan mithya. No, we don't say that, mithya. We say jagat is also satyam, because the jagat has emanated from the Supreme. Therefore, it is not mithya, but it is temporary. That is also explained in the Bhagavad Gita. The material nature is temporary. Bhutva bhutva praliyate. Bhagavad Gita 8.19. It comes into existence and it stays for some time. Then it is again annihilated. But it is not mithya or false. We don't say mithya. And it can be utilized for the supreme truth. That is Vaishnava philosophy. Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yuktam Vairagya Uchate. Our Vaishnava philosophy is, we don't take anything as mithya. We take it as truth, but we don't use it for a purpose of which is not truth. So I thought that summarized this whole concept that Lord Vishnu is presenting perfectly. Mithya, the Mayavadis, we were speaking this morning, Sama Priya came up with a really good, concise concept. The Mayavadis believe that those in the individual state, that's an illusion, that the individual state of the living entities or the Lord when he advents is an illusion. This completely eradicates or contradicts that concept. This world is not an illusion. It's not false. It's not just a dream. It's actually a manifestation of the Lord's energy, but it is temporary and therefore inferior. Anybody have any other realizations about this first verse from the Chatushloki?
I had a question, Prabhu.
Yes, please.
So, Mithya, I don't know what the literal translation is, but untrue, false, unreal. Which one is the exact word? Or all of those are okay?
Yes, all of those are okay. It means that it's not real.
Right,
Just
right.
like a dream. Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada gives the example of a horse's eggs. A horse doesn't lay eggs. So if we come up with this concept, it's false. It's an illusion, or the water in the mirage. There's really no water there, but the animal thinks that it's there, or the human being thinks that it's there and walks through the desert looking for that. And it just keeps never appearing because there really is no water there. So the Mayavadis say that this world actually doesn't exist. It's just a dream. It's a false manifestation. The Vaishnav concept, however, is just explained by Srila Prabhupada, is that it does exist. It is real, but it is temporary. That's the difference.
Also, some impersonalists say that that everything is created by the person's mind, and you're like, no, how can you say that? Your mind is not that wonderful. You cannot imagine all of these things. What are you talking about?
Good. That's a good point. Thank you. Okay. We still, okay, so we're going to go on now. Pritam, would you continue for the next two slides, please?
Yes. CCRD 1.54, Srimad Bhagavatam 2.934, the second of the Chatusloki. What appears to be truth without me is certainly my illusory energy, for nothing can exist without me. It is like a reflection of a real light in the shadows, for in the light there are neither shadows nor reflections. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In the previous verse, the absolute truth and its nature have been explained. One must also understand the relative truth to actually know the absolute. The relative truth, which is called Maya or material nature, is explained here. Maya has no independent existence. One who is less intelligent is captivated by the wonderful activities of Maya. But it does not understand that behind these activities is the direction of the Supreme Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita 9:10, it is said, Maya Dakshena Prakriti Suyate Sacharacharam. The material nature is working and producing moving and non-moving beings only by the supervision of Krishna.
Thank you. Go on.
Purport continued. The absolute truth is substance, and the relative truth depends upon its relationship with the absolute for its existence. Maya means energy. Therefore, the relative truth is explained to be the energy of the absolute truth. Since it is difficult to understand the distinction between the absolute and relative truths, an analogy can be given for clarification. The absolute truth can be compared to the sun, which is appreciated in terms of two relative truths, reflection and darkness. Darkness is the absence of sunshine, and a reflection is a projection of sunlight into darkness. Neither darkness nor reflection has an independent existence. Darkness comes when the sunshine is blocked. For example, if one stands facing the sun, his back will be in darkness. Since darkness stands in the absence of the sun, it is therefore related to the sun. The spiritual world is compared to the real sunshine, and the material world is compared to the dark regions where the sun is not visible.
Thank you, Pritam. We can see that this wonderful example that Prabhupada was giving about the sun. Can you shed some light on that example?
Well, so the sun is, it reminds me of a, I think, beautiful verse from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita or some other scripture where it says, Maya Krishna Sujya Shaman, Maya Andaka Jaha Krishna Taha Nahi, Maya Radhika. That means Krishna is like the sun and Maya is like darkness. So wherever there is Krishna, there cannot be darkness. So that's the whole point. The sun exists because the sun exists, there is light. And wherever there is not light, there is darkness. But both of them cannot exist independently without the sun. So similarly, our whatever the existence, the light, the darkness or illusion, whatever you call it, all of this emanates from Krishna. So when we are forgetful of Krishna, when you think something is independent of Krishna, that is really illusion or Maya. but everything is basically emanating from Krishna. So that's the whole point I can understand from this.
Very good, very good. Because seeking Krishna in everything.
Mhm.
Nothing is existing without Krishna. So we have to look for Krishna. This is happening because of Krishna. Everything in relation to Krishna. That's how we understand. And then we get the benediction of realization and devotional service. We have to learn. It's an art. It actually is an art to learn to see everything as Krishna and in relation to Krishna. Pati, could you say something about that? I can't hear you.
Yeah, I want to hear somebody explain this part, because this is really beautiful. It's like he says, nothing can exist without me. It is like a reflection of a real light in the shadows. For in the light, there is neither shadows nor reflections. Pritam, explain that.
Okay, so my understanding is, again, it goes back to the purport that we read earlier, that both light and darkness that emanates from the sun, it's basically, they are not sun, the sun is there, the sun, from the sun we get light, and of course also we get the darkness. So similarly, Krishna is saying, I'm real, and whatever you see is also a reflection of me. But in a sense, I mean, there is no darkness, there is no light.
We're losing you. We're losing you.
Sorry.
Okay.
So Krishna. So I think this is again goes back to Krishna and his energies, right? So all the energies emanate from Krishna. Krishna is saying, I'm real. I'm energetic. I'm the source of all energy, and without me, there is no independent existence of the energies. It all emanates from me. So that's how I read it.
Okay. More specifically, I want to delve into this concept of the real light and the shadows and the reflections. If you're in a place where the sun is shining on you, and off in the distance there's a room where it's dark, and you take a mirror and there's somebody in that room, and you take a mirror and you reflect the light into that room, that light illuminates the room, and that person in the room may think that, oh, now the light has, now this is real. That light that I'm seeing on the mirror is real, and the light in the room is real. But actually, the only way that that light exists is because of the sun in the sky. If there's no acknowledgement of the sun in the sky, and we take the room and its illumination and the reflection of the light on the mirror as real, as the total substance, then we're not really understanding the reality. We're seeing reflections and shadows.
Very good.
I thought that was a clear one. I think Elizabeth, somebody has their hand up.
Yeah.
I got
Elizabeth, would you like us to call you something other than Elizabeth? Or you're good with Elizabeth?
Yes, Elizabeth.
Okay, sweetie.
So I just have shelter under Jaya Pataka Swami. I don't have a spiritual name. So yeah, I was just gonna say the same thing that Prabhu said, about the reflection in the mirror. And I was also going to say how we also see in this lesson that he gives example in relation not to the mirror, but also to the moon, that we say that the moon has a light, but in reality, the moon has no light. We see, oh, the moon is so bright, tonight, look how beautiful it is. But in reality, it is reflecting just the sunlight, and the sunlight is coming from the Brahma Yoti. So again, everything coming from Krishna.
Is that a fact that the moon has no light, Pati? You have to unmute.
It's a point of contradiction we don't want to bring up.
Yeah, don't let's bring that one up.
But most material scientists say that the moon is, yes, a reflection. Even Prabhupada said that. It's a reflection of the sun.
Okay.
It's not self-luminous.
All right, thank you. So let us continue with Tisha. Is that where we're at? Is it? Oh dear. Okay, Pati, is that the next slide? Okay, Tisha.
Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hari
Purport
Bol.
continued. when the material manifestation appears very wonderful, this is due to a perverted reflection of the supreme sunshine, the absolute truth, as confirmed in the Vedanta Sutra. Whatever one can see here has its substance in the absolute. As darkness is situated far away from the sun, so the material world is also far away from the spiritual world. The Vedic literature directs us not to be captivated by the dark regions, tama, but to try to reach the shining regions of the absolute, yogi dham. The spiritual world is brightly illuminated, but the material world is wrapped in darkness. In the material world, sunshine, moonshine, or different kinds of artificial light are required to dispel darkness, especially at night, for by nature, the material world is dark. Therefore, the Supreme Lord has arranged for sunshine and moonshine, but in his abode, as described in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, verse 6, there is no necessity for lighting by sunshine, moonshine, or electricity because everything is self-effulgent.
It's amazing. Keep going, sweetie.
Okay. That which is relative, temporary, and far away from the absolute truth is called Maya or ignorance. This illusion is exhibited in two ways, as explained in the Bhagavad Gita. The inferior illusion is inert matter, and the superior illusion is the living entity. The living entities are called illusory in this context only because they are implicated in the illusory structures and activities of the material world. Actually, the living entities are not illusory, for they are parts of the superior energy of the Supreme Lord and do not have to be covered by Maya if they do not want to be so. The actions of the living entities in the spiritual kingdom are not illusory. They are the actual eternal activities of liberated souls.
Thank you, Tisha. Do you have something to say about that?
Well, it just is so encouraging to hear that, we have a choice. We can be caught up in the illusory material world, or we can surrender to Krishna, chant the Maha Mantra, and then not be entrapped by the material world.
That's right on. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to continue now with Gopa. Gopa Patni, could you read this verse?
Let's see. Hang on. Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi 1.55. As the material elements enter the bodies of all living beings and yet remain outside them all, I exist within all material creations and yet am not within them. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The gross material elements, earth, fire, air, and ether, combine with the subtle material elements, mind, intelligence, and false ego, to construct the bodies of this material world. And yet they are beyond these bodies as well. Any material construction is nothing but an amalgamation or combination of material elements in varied proportions. These elements exist both within and beyond the body. For example, although the sky exists in space, it also enters within the body. Similarly, the Lord, the Supreme Lord, who is the cause of the material energy, lives within the material world as well as beyond it. Without his presence within the material world, the cosmic body could not develop. Just as without the presence of the spirit within the physical body, the body could not develop. The entire material manifestation develops and exists because the Supreme Personality of Godhead enters it as Paramatma, or the Super Soul. The personality of Godhead in his all-pervading feature of Paramatma enters every entity, from the biggest to the most minute. His existence can be realized by one who has the single qualification of submissiveness and who thereby becomes a surrendered soul. The development of submissiveness is the cause of proportionate spiritual realization, by which one can ultimately meet the Supreme Lord in person, as a man meets another man face to face.
Oh boy. What do you think about that? You ready to meet Krishna face to face? I'm ready. He might
Yeah.
not think I'm ready though.
I don't think he's ready for me.
Oh, he's been waiting for a while for you, go.
I need to cook a little longer in the material world.
Oh. Anything else?
One
Oh,
point
go
that I really liked was, without his presence within the material world, this cosmic body would not develop, just as without the presence of the spirit soul within the physical body, the body could not develop. Again, we're back to this concept that he's the whole foundation of everything. And without him, it wouldn't even exist. It couldn't develop. It wouldn't move. Nothing would happen.
Elizabeth, do you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I was thinking that, like from the impersonal point of view, they think that the universe is chaos. But here, we can see how when the soul enters the body, that the body can do everything that our body does because the soul is there. So like when he enters the material universes, which is like just a bigger body, it is also moving because Krishna is there present, as the Paramatma everywhere. And it says here that submissiveness is important to understand this. And I was thinking about that, and I was thinking, well, impersonalists, they lack that submissiveness. And I was thinking, what is that? What is that? And I thought that submissiveness is the desire to want to learn and the desire to ask, a teacher. So I've taught, in my life, and I teach, and I can see as a teacher, when sometimes, a student is more inquisitive, you give them the answers. So they have to want to understand. They have to want to learn. I think that was part of submissiveness, as how I understood it.
Good. Very good point. Thank you. Very
I
good.
have a question.
Okay, Madhurya Leela.
We're reading it in our other CC group, the Madhya Leela, I think it's chapter 20 or something like that, where it says that Maya, part of Maya, there's a dull matter. It's dull matter, and the question came up: how is it that Vishnu can glance over material nature? If it's dull matter, how can that become impregnated? Because in our experience, life comes, in the material world, woman has been impregnated. It's from one living entity to another living entity, and the impregnation takes place. So how is it that if Maya is dull matter, how does that?
Okay, that's an interesting point. My answer would be, there's a little bit difference between your glance and my glance and Krishna's glance. Krishna's glance is filled with all living entities. When Krishna glances upon something, everything becomes transformed and alive. Krishna has that potency, that is omniscience. He has the potency. That's my understanding. That when he glances, that's in the material energy, Lord Shiva is a manifestation of that glance of the Lord that creates the life in the material world. That's the duty of Sri Advaita and Lord Chaitanya, Lord Shiva. That glance is filled with all the living entities. and he gives life to all the matter. He makes the matter become alive because his glance is all powerful. Just like I could say Prabhupada's glance, of course, there's some difference there, but it's just a spiritual quality, you know. What do you think, Patti?
That example. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Oh, no, you're muted now.
We just read that previously, that just as the sun creates a cloud, then the cloud exists in the sky. So in the same way, the Brahmajyoti has potency. It's not just static existent energy. It actually has potency within it. So what happens is that the Lord doesn't glance over material energy. He glances over its state called pradhan. It's an unmanifested state of the potential for material elements. And his glance infuses the living entities back into that pradhan. And then, as we will read later in this third canto, with the evolution of the different elements, they conglomerate and start to manifest according to that potential energy within it, although it's inert energy. Because we see water flows, different things. Each element has their different characteristics. So his glance is actually potent and manifests the material energy itself as an inert inferior energy to create the atmosphere that the living entities who are an illusion can live in that temporary abode, thinking that it's real.
And when they describe the Maya or material energy as dull matter,
that means it's not living. If just as we just read, if the body doesn't have a soul within it, although there are living entities in that body, like the worms and the germs, it doesn't appear alive because it's just inert matter. A table is inert, dull matter.
So the question was, how can an inert matter, dull matter, receive the seed?
It doesn't. Pradhan does.
So pradhan's different than dull matter.
Yes. Matter manifests from pradhan.
Mm-hmm.
We'll read these details and the science of it later on in this canto.
All right,
Okay.
thank you. I'll forward
That's my
that.
understanding, and we'll get into the science of it in detail.
Okay. Let's go on with Narayan reading the next slide. Here you go.
Purport continues. Because of his development of transcendental attachment for the Supreme Lord, a surrendered soul feels the presence of his beloved everywhere, and all his senses are engaged in the loving service of the Lord. His eyes are engaged in seeing the beautiful couple Sri Radha and Krishna sitting in the decorated throne beneath the desire tree in the transcendental land of Vrindavan. His nose is engaged in smelling the spiritual aroma of the lotus feet of the Lord. Similarly, his ears are engaged in hearing messages from Vaikuntha, and the hands embrace the lotus feet of the Lord and his associates. Thus, the Lord is manifested to a pure devotee from within and without. This is one of the mysteries of the devotional relationship, in which a devotee and the Lord are bound by a tie of spontaneous love. To achieve this love should be the goal of life for every living being.
Thank you, Narayan. What do you think about that? Can you comment? Narayan?
Yeah. Well, I guess it's the more developed devotees that will eventually get there, but I would say I'm on that path, hopefully to get there.
Okay, that's good. What are you doing to achieve that path?
Oh, well, I do my typical sadhana every day, and it's working, I could tell you that.
Good. Well, keep doing it. It's made very simple for people like us in the Kali Yuga.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sama,
Okay, yeah.
I noticed Jayashree is here, so maybe she can.
I know she's next.
Okay.
Can you read, Jayashree? Or software? However you like to be addressed. You have to unmute. Unmute. Unmute, sweetie. Is that you, Jayashree? Okay, unmute. You have to go to your thing. It's on the bottom, and there's a little sign that is it says mute and unmute. So you have to just unmute that.
On mine also, if you hover over your little photo, you'll see a mute, unmute option.
I'll unmute it. Oh, can we unmute it? Can you unmute it?
No.
For her? Someone unmute Jayashree.
No, we cannot unmute anybody. She has to.
You have to do it. We're waiting.
We can ask her to unmute.
Well, we're asking.
If she is on the laptop also, maybe she can place the
There I am.
There she goes, sweetie. Oh, now she went bad again. All right. I still can't, you're still muted.
Okay, I'm unmuted.
Yes, you are. Cool. And where'd you go? All right, now read.
Yes. Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi 156. Srimad Bhagavatam 2:936, the third of the Chatur Shloki. A person interested in transcendental knowledge must therefore always directly and indirectly inquire about it to know the all-pervading truth. Purport. Those who are serious about the knowledge of the transcendental world, which is far beyond the cosmic creation, must approach a bona fide spiritual master to learn the science both directly and indirectly. One must learn both the means to approach the desired destination and the hindrances to such progress. The spiritual master knows how to regulate the habits of a neophyte disciple, and therefore a serious student must learn the science in all the aspects from him.
All right, go on.
There are different grades and standards of prosperity. The standard of comfort and happiness conceived by a common man engaged in material labor is the lowest grade of happiness, for it is in relationship with the body. The highest standard of such bodily comfort is achieved by a fruitive worker who is pious, who by pious activities reaches the plane of heaven, or the kingdom of the creative gods with their delegated powers. But the conception of comfortable life in heaven is insignificant in comparison to the happiness enjoyed in the impersonal Brahman, and this Brahmananda, the spiritual bliss derived from impersonal Brahman, is like water in the hoofprint of a calf compared to the ocean of love of Godhead. When one develops pure love for the Lord, he derives an ocean of transcendental happiness from the association of the personality of Godhead. To qualify oneself to reach this stage of life is the highest perfection.
Thank you. So Prabhupada is really pointing us in the right direction. What do you got to say about that, Jayashree? Can you give us a little commentary?
No.
You've been doing this for a long time. It's really very sweet to see you here.
Really out of practice.
No,
But,
I can't.
yeah, I mean, we know it's the highest, so that's why we're still here.
Good.
After
Sweet
years.
and simple. That is beautiful. We know it's the highest. So after so many years, decades, we're still here. So that's proof right there. And even though Krishna sometimes really crashes us in his embrace, still we're taking shelter of him. And that shows that there is something very big going on between the devotee and Krishna.
Yes.
Thank you, Jayashree. Next, we're going to have Sulakshana. Can you read this verse, Sulakshana, and then Elizabeth?
Oh, purport. One should try to purchase a ticket to go back home, back to Godhead. The price of such a ticket is one's intense desire for it, which is not easily awakened even if one continuously performs pious activities for thousands of lives. All mundane relationships are sure to be broken in the course of time, but once one establishes a relationship with the personality of Godhead in a particular rasa, it is never to be broken, even after the annihilation of the material world. One should understand through the transparent medium of the spiritual master that the Supreme Lord exists everywhere in his transcendental spiritual nature, and that the living entities' relationship with the Lord are directly and indirectly existing everywhere, even in this material world. In the spiritual world, there are 5 kinds of relationships with the Supreme Lord: Shanta, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. The perverted reflections of this process are found in the material world. Land, home, furniture, and other inert material objects are related in Shanta or the neutral and silent sense, whereas the servants work in the Dasya relationship. The reciprocation between friends is called Sakya. The affection of a parent for a child is known as Vatsalya, and the affairs of conjugal love constitute Madhurya. These 5 relationships in the material world are distorted relationships of the original pure sentiments, which should be understood and perfected in relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. In the material world, the perverted rasas bring frustration. If these rasas are established with Lord Krishna, the result is eternal blissful life.
Oh, thank you, Lakshana, another very sincere and wonderful devotee here. We're getting all the jewels here. Can you say something about this?
Wow, yeah, I think in order to get the relationship with the Lord, it seems like from the purport, it looks like that we have to break our material relationship.
Yeah, there's another wonderful verse. As we break our material relationship, proportionally, our relationship will be developed. But then someone can fall into impersonalism like that. Yeah. So we have to understand the first verse that we read, Aham, Krishna is a person, and we can have a relationship with him when we see him everywhere and when we use our energy to serve him. Yes. Pati, you got something to say about that?
Yeah, one important point is that Lord Chaitanya instructed Sanatana Goswami to write a book on Vaishnava etiquette, because the relationships in this material world, if properly cultivated, devotees help one another develop their relationship with Krishna. It's not that we do away with relationships, but we have to learn exactly how to do that. And sometimes there are fine and gray lines in that. The last sentence in this purport explains that. In the material world, the perverted rasas bring frustration. If these rasas are reestablished with Lord Krishna, the result is eternal blissful life. Because in this material world, if we have too much attachment for anything or anyone, then that will bring frustration and distress. So everything has to be dovetailed in relationship with Krishna. And ultimately we see, even in the activities of pure devotees, the way they relate to one another is very tasty. We read the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita is full of wonderful exchanges between Lord Chaitanya and his devotees. So they can be used, but it has to be extremely refined in its proper execution.
So anybody who is coming in is an obstacle in developing that relationship with the Supreme Lord, then we should break that.
Anyone who is coming between one's relationship with the Supreme Lord, that relationship should be broken. Is that the question?
Yeah.
So also, it is advised to give up everything that doesn't further our Krishna consciousness, except those things that are favorable. This is according to Rupa Goswami in Nectar of Instruction, except those things that are favorable for our Krishna consciousness, and ultimately reject those things that are not favorable. But one has to be very artistic in this sometimes.
Yeah,
You
there are
know,
there are definitely subtle aspects to that, like a husband leaving a wife leaving her husband. Is sometimes we see that there are Vaishnav women who don't have Vaishnav husbands, but yet remain very chaste to them. That also has its merits. It's a very, that at that point it becomes very subjective. It's an individual circumstance that needs to be considered. It's not just black and white in every circumstance.
because we're all individuals.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's very, very important. You know, we're Prabhupada, it's in his prana mantra to fight impersonalism. It comes into everything. You know, we're involved sometimes in a great institution, and then we see that maybe it's a little impersonal. We're not seeing ourselves as an individual. We must see ourselves as individual servants of Krishna as well. So that there's so many things to become aware of when we become Krishna conscious. Anyway, this is very profound stuff here. So we have a couple more people that joined, but Ian, are you there to read this next verse? And then, Elizabeth was going to read. Elizabeth, why don't you just read this purport for us?
From this and the preceding 3 verses of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which have been selected from Srimad Bhagavatam, the missionary activities of Lord Chaitanya can be understood. Srimad Bhagavatam has 18,000 verses, which are summarized in the 4 verses, beginning with Aham, Evasam, Evagre, 53, and concluding with Yat, Syat, Sarvatra, Sarvada, 56. In the first of the 3 verses, 53, the transcendental nature of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is explained. The second verse, 54, further explains that the Lord is detached from the workings of the material energy Maya. The living entities, although parts and parcels of Lord Krishna, are prone to be controlled by the external energy. Therefore, although they are spiritual, in the material world, they are encased in bodies of material energy. The eternal relationship of the living entities with the Supreme Lord is explained in that verse.
Now, these definitions or summaries of the Chaturshloki, it takes some contemplation. I would suggest that my husband was going to make this. I guess we didn't get it together. View the Chaturshloki and see what Srila Prabhupada has, how he has summarized it. But I have a question before we go on, if I may. How does do the Chaturshloki? How does that affect, what does that have to do with Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement? Pati, could you answer that, or anyone else want to go with that one? You have to unmute, please.
I'd like to hear somebody else's.
Well, I was thinking that Lord Chaitanya, is showing one of the rasas, right? We were talking about the rasas. He's showing, he appears as Srimati Radharani and Krishna combined. And
no, Elizabeth, what we're trying to do is connect these verses to Lord Chaitanya's. Specifically, this purport is describing Prabhupada, as I have highlighted here. From this and the preceding 3 verses Chaitanya Charitamrita, which have been selected from Srimad Bhagavatam, the missionary activities of Lord Chaitanya can be understood. So specifically these verses.
Right. So
in relation to the missionary activities, rather than Lord Chaitanya came for several reasons. So we're not going to delve into the other reasons. We want to know, let's discuss the missionary activities first, because unless we understand that fully, we cannot enter into the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, or we cannot enter into the inner meaning of what Lord Chaitanya came to give us. We have to start from the beginning here. Is that all right? Does everyone understand that? If we want the highest transcendental knowledge, first we have to understand that we're not these bodies, that Krishna is present everywhere in the material world. We have to understand these things. Kameshi, would you like to say something about that?
I was thinking the relationship with the verses, kind of more the mood of Lord Chaitanya. First, the verses start like clean your heart. When you clean your heart with the Sankirtan movement, when you're chanting Hare Krishna, gradually you start develop certain consciousness to understand, and in that way you can spread the message around.
That's good. That's a Shikshastika.
Yeah.
But we're talking about the Chatur Shloka here. I'm sincere about wanting to know this.
Let's start and go one by one. Prabhupada says, in the first of these verses, the transcendental nature of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is explained. Can anybody remember what the first of the Chatur Shloki discussed?
Evasam agre.
Yes. I existed before this material energy. Only I exist during it. Only I exist after it. So part of the missionary activities is?
To teach people that Krishna is the Supreme Personality.
Yes, very good.
Good,
Excellent.
good,
Exactly.
excellent.
There you
Very
go.
good.
Now,
girl.
the second verse further explains that the Lord is detached from the workings of this material energy, Maya. The living entities, although parts and parcels of Lord Krishna, are prone to be controlled by that external energy. Therefore, although they are spiritual, in the material world, they are encased in bodies of material energy. The eternal relationship of the living entities with the Supreme Lord is explained in that verse. Who can explain that one? Where he said that if you see something not in relationship to me, that is an illusion, like a reflection in this in the darkness. So how does that relate to this relationship, our relationship with the Lord?
Utilize everything what we have in service of the Lord.
Yes, connect it with the reality.
Yeah.
To see everything in relation to, that's what we've been talking about this for a while, seeing everything in relation to the Lord. And that's how we understand our relationship with Krishna, you know.
Now the purport goes on to describe the final two verses.
Okay. Now we're going to go on with, I just want to know if Ian is there. And are you there, Ian? Sometimes I guess not. Celia? Okay. These are new people, but Celia, are you there? Otherwise,
you have to unmute.
Anyway, if we're having problems there, Celia, I see you there. You want to unmute? You're not. We can't hear you because you're muted. I don't think she knows. Celia, there you go.
Haribol, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Haribol, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Beautiful. Thank you for having me today.
Okay, so we're on the next slide. Is this the last slide, Patsy? Oh, we already read it? No, okay, read it, Celia.
Okay, purport continued. The next verse, 55. The next verse, 55, instructs that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by his inconceivable energies, is simultaneously one with and different from the living entities and the material energy. This knowledge is called Achintya Beta Beta Tattva. When an individual living entity surrenders to the Supreme Lord Krishna, he can then develop natural transcendental love for him. This surrendering process should be the primary concern of a human being.
Mataji, let me put the verse up so that you can explain how it connects to what you just read.
Okay.
Oops, sorry. We're doing the third. Read that verse.
Okay. As the material elements enters into the body of, it's a little bit blocked by this let's see if I can get rid of these. I'm blocked by the
You're looking on a laptop, Mataji, you can press escape on the keyboard.
escape. I
Well,
don't have that.
Escape on the
Okay,
on the
anyway, I'll read it for you and then you can
Yeah, read
explain it.
Okay.
As the material elements enter the bodies of all living beings and yet remain outside them all, I exist within all material creations and yet am not within them. And then you just read this.
Achinta beta beta.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so we understand what a Chinta Beta Beta Tattva is, right?
Simultaneously the same and different. So we have this free will, we are able to make decisions on our own, but when we align ourselves with Krishna, with Lord Chaitanya, then we become one with him, one in intention with him.
Yeah.
And we're able to function more naturally, because that is our natural state, to be Jivara Swarupa Hoy Nitya Krishna Das.
Right.
That's our natural state. That's our natural state. So it's a beautiful opportunity that we have. But unfortunately, we are distracted from doing so. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. That's beautiful. Do you want to continue, or maybe we should have, how about Kameshi? You want to read that? Thank you, Celia.
Yes, I can read.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, in the next verse, 56, it is said that a conditional soul must ultimately approach a bona fide spiritual master and try to understand perfectly the material and spiritual world and his own existing position. Here the word anvyaya vyatire kavyam, directly and indirectly, suggests that one must learn the process of devotional service in two aspects. One must directly execute the process of devotional service and indirectly avoid the impediments to progress.
Here's that verse so that you can read it and explain.
If you're not speaking, can you please mute?
Yeah, a person interested in transcendental knowledge must therefore always directly and indirectly inquire about it to know the all-providing truth. I also read the purpose. Okay.
No. Now, I found it interesting that Srila Prabhupada connected that to one must find a bona fide spiritual master, and understand perfectly. That's how we actually learn this, by that connection with the spiritual, from someone who knows it.
Yeah. I was thinking more of the example when Prabhupada said the son learns from the father, and when that son becomes a father, he shared the knowledge with the other son, and it's kind of like gradually, like we pass the knowledge through the different like acharyas.
You know what that's called? You know what that's called?
Some, yeah. I know. I don't know. You can say that.
Disciplic succession.
Yeah, disciplic succession.
She was thinking Sanskrit, sampradaya, parampara.
Yeah, I was thinking that. Yeah.
Okay, very good. All right, well, that was the last of our verses. So we're open for a little discussion here. If anybody would like to partake, ask questions, or have something to say about this subject matter, these four verses are the foundation of everything in Krishna consciousness, in life, actually. Very important verses.
Also, just to put it in proper context again, this is in the chapter called The Spiritual Masters. In the beginning of the chapter, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami described the initiating and instructing spiritual masters. And then in these lessons, slightly segued into the Lord himself instructing the living entities. The first verse we read today was from Bhagavad Gita, Tesham Satati Yuktanam Bhatatam Pratipurvakam, to those who worship me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. And he does that from within one's heart and also from without, in the form of the spiritual master, in the form of the Vedas, so many different ways. Then he described further how the Lord personally advented in before Lord Brahma, the first created being, and instructed him and told him, you tell this to your sons and their followers. So this is the essential truth coming directly from the beginning of creation down to today, through this disciplic succession. We're so fortunate to have it in this Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita. So that just puts it into context why we're studying this and how it fits into the overall picture of our studies. Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay,
Yes.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. I hope to see you next time. And actually reading the texts before coming to the Zoom is also very wonderful and very helpful and very ecstatic. We want
I
because
have
had a
sorry,
question.
I have a question also.
Okay, we have some questions.
Yeah, but it's more like for information. This is, we studied the Srimad Bhagavatam third canto.
Yes.
Okay, so this is a part one when we started studying, we compare with the other books like Chaitanya Charitamrita and other quotes from Prabhupada, yes?
Have you gone on to the course materials?
Yeah, this is my first time, so I didn't
If you go to the course materials, there's a video at the top. It says Srimad Bhagavatam Welcome.
Okay.
If you watch that video, it explains how we're transitioning from the second canto to the third canto by also studying Brahma Samhita and Chaitanya Charitamrita, because they have that same conversation between Lord Brahma and Krishna within them. So it's to fluff out that topic.
Okay. Thank you.
Elizabeth?
Yeah, I was wondering why, because we say asat and we say sat, we have the letter A, in front when it's like not, right? Like the opposite.
Right.
I was thinking about Veda Tattva. Why is it Veda and not Veda Aveda Tattva?
It is Aveda.
Yes, it is Aveda.
Oh, because in the material that we read, it just says Veda. So then that's a typo.
It's a conjunction.
Oh, they're putting the one A from the last word with the A from the.
Yeah. In Sanskrit, that happens. That happens often in Sanskrit. The last A,
yes,
it goes on to the next word if there's an A there.
Very good. Thank you, Sulakshana.
And that middle A would have a bar at the top. So
Pardon?
it means I'm saying that the Veda, the middle A, the conjunction has a bar at the top. That shows there is a conjunction.
I see.
Oh, now we're getting into Sanskrit.
Yes, Sanskrit.
Oh my goodness.
That's how they join two words.
Okay. My philosophy, because I'm very less intelligent, if I can get through the English, I'm doing good. And the Hare Krishna mantra is only 3 words. So, that's for people in this age, but I certainly appreciate correcting ourselves like this. Okay, so yeah.
I had another question about you said, Prabhu said, we don't get into that. Prabhu Pritan said, we don't get into that when I was mentioning, that the moon, had no light on its own. And then Prabhu said, we say that it is not self-illuminated. Could you explain a little bit more of that so that when we are teaching someone else, we don't make a mistake that we're not supposed to?
Okay, I have one thing to say. When you're teaching someone else about the most intimate pastimes of Krishna, there are many devotees who have been devotees for many years who don't even go to that topic.
She's talking about themselves. The moon being self-illuminated.
No, she said also about the
no, I'm talking about the moon.
The moon. Oh, yeah. Well, I thought the moon was effulgent, and now
I think it's a scientific topic that we have to look up more, have to do some more research to find out the exact.
Yeah.
I have a quick question.
Yes,
I have a quick question. So one of the verses said, like, we are part of parcels of Krishna, or we're part of the Krishna's energy. So, for example, I was reading one of the books, Perfect Question and Perfect Answers, and Prabhupada saying one of the part, like, Bob asked, like, okay, how about the rascals, the rascal people who's come also is part of the energy of Krishna? Or So Prabhupada answered like, yeah, means Krishna has also this kind of rasa, the behavior. He was also a rascal. So in my mind, I was thinking, how about the abuser people? How about the people who's really evil and it's really bad? So how can I
this is
understand
not
that?
a rasa. This is not a rasa with Krishna. The material energy is a perverted reflection. And it's a place where the conditioned souls who want to be rascals and enjoy without Krishna have to enjoy and suffer the results of their past misdeeds. Prabhupada also said, don't blame Krishna for your own mistakes. So, everything is allowed, but you will suffer the consequences. Krishna doesn't force, and he fulfills your desire. So if your desire is to commit some sinful activities, then your next life, you're going to get a body that will, wait a second, that you'll get a body that is conducive to that. For example, the body of the pig, and this is Bhagavad Gita. You want to eat all kinds of food stuff, so in your next body, you might get the body of the pig to satisfy those desires. So this is the material world. Everything is possible to fulfill all the horrible desires that the conditioned souls can muster up. And when you come to Krishna consciousness, it's an opportunity to become freed from all that sinful mentality and purify our souls, because that's the goal of human life. We've just read in another purport. That's the goal of human life, is to become Krishna conscious, because that's who we really are. We really are eternal spirit souls, servants of Krishna.
Yeah, but my question, like, how I can understand in this world is so many evil things, bad things, and in the scripture says that they're reflection, you say they're perverted reflection from the spiritual world.
In the spirit, there's no sin in the spiritual world. There's no false ego. And we have to give ourselves time to grow. Just because we come to Krishna consciousness and we want to know everything and we're reading everything, we have to keep chanting. Probably would say that. Just keep chanting. You will get the realizations. Recognize that is sinful. And if you don't completely understand why and how it fits in to all the cosmic and the spiritual worlds, keep chanting, keep reading. This is the best of all things. And you will soon understand. We can't understand everything all at once. But Krishna consciousness is a divine love trip. You keep chanting, you'll fall in love, and you'll go back to Godhead. Is that okay? I'm not making light of what you said, but be a little patient. Celia.
Okay. Thank you.
There's my book, everyone, The Divine Love Trip. I wrote that book, and Tisha's holding it up. That's it. It is a divine love trip. Prabhupada taught us all of this. Yes, Celia, you're going to reveal who you really are now? You seem to. Okay, you have to unmute, sweetie. I think you're frozen there.
I think she's frozen, Mataji.
Yeah, it looks like you're frozen. All right.
Mataji, is there anything in the scriptures and the shastras that says if we can know our rasa when we are in the material world, or like to have from Paramatma to understand which one is the rasa that we have or not?
Okay. I think that the one thing we can know for sure at this point, because we are all very new to Krishna consciousness, even if we've been doing this for 50 years, we're still in the material world. Understand that firstly, we are servants of Krishna. Okay? And the other things will come when you're mature. Don't rush it. First, get rid of envy, greed, anger, lust, all that stuff. If we're clean, and you know how you get rid of Chaito Darpana Marjana. Chant Hare Krishna, be happy. Okay, slow down, Angel. You're doing good. Keep reading, keep chanting, and these things will come later naturally when we're more equipped to handle them. Is that all right, sweetie? Okay. All right, my dears, we're going to sign out now. And Preecham, you stay on the line there. because we're going to talk to Preetam for a sec.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. I hope to see you next week. You're all beautiful, and there's a very treasured Vanchakalpatarubyascha, Kripasinivyacha, Patitanam Pavanivyo Vaishnavi. Thank you, everyone.